Alright, let's get into the chapter 226 review of Jujutsu Kaisen. And if you like Jujutsu Kaisen content and other anime content, subscribe for more. This week, the full translations have cleared up a couple of things I had questions on in this chapter, so let's get right into it. So this chapter opens up and we see Gojo in the worst position of his life, just where we left off last week. And Gojo puts his hand towards the back of his neck as blood is just pouring out of the wound. Yuji sees this on the monitor and is clearly worried for Gojo, and then we see Gojo use reverse curse technique to heal the wound on his neck. But Higurama notes that these slashes will not stop until Gojo has escaped from Malevolent Shrine. And it makes sense that Higurama would know the function of Malevolent Shrine, or at least part of its function, because he did see Shibuya through his trial with Yuji. Choso notes that since Sukuna's domain isn't closed off, it should be easy to escape, and Hikari says Gojo should be fast enough even if the radius is the entirety of Shibuya. And Kusakabe gives us some more information on Blue and Limitless, and that Gojo has to compress space and use coordinates to move that fast. So we kind of already knew that Gojo's teleport was an application of Blue, but here it is pretty much confirmed. And Kusakabe states that since Gojo is burnt out from using his domain right now, he cannot use his curse technique. And because of this, we see Gojo turn into a fountain of blood. And it looks like we get Gojo's inner dialogue here where he says, "Ah, great. It looks like the performance of my curse technique is significantly better than yours." And I'm assuming he's referencing the sure hit effect of his domain versus Sukuna's, because if this was Unlimited Void, Gojo would be dead. Because Unlimited Void and Self-Embodiment of Perfection, these effects are so oppressive that you just die. Unless you are one of the only people in the entire series with an understanding of the soul that can just say, know your place. So Gojo, using RCT and the output of his reinforcement to survive Malevolent Shrine, does a smart thing and he tries to run. But Sukuna is having none of that and jumps his ass immediately, saying, "You think I'd just let you go?" They start fighting in hand-to-hand combat while Gojo is being continuously slashed by Malevolent Shrine, and he even attempts to get a counterattack in. To which Sukuna notes that even after surviving his slashes and using reverse curse technique, he moves pretty well. And in Gojo's inner dialogue, we see him take note that the actual domain is tied to the shrine, not Sukuna himself. And at the same time, we see Yuji ask, "What happens if you destroy that shrine?" To which Kusakabe and Mei both say that it has no special meaning and that just because it is manifested from your innate domain does not mean anything, and destroying it would do nothing. And I can't believe they just brushed this off so nonchalantly. You guys didn't even believe that he was able to make an open barrier like 5 minutes ago. This is like two high school art teachers judging the paintings of Michelangelo in the Sistine Chapel. But after this, we see Gojo pull out New Shadow Style, to Kusakabe's shock and Yuji's shock, who asked, "Didn't Gojo say he couldn't use it?" To which Kusakabe says, "A genius like him who knows it from the start would of course struggle to teach it." And this implies that Yuji knows how to use New Shadow Style, or at the very least asked Gojo to teach it to him. Because we know they've been training for the past month and Kusakabe has been training with Yuji, so I'm guessing Gojo passed the responsibility of teaching off to somebody else. And Choso notes that Gojo is capable of doing this simultaneously with RCT due to a low output from Simple Domain, which can only buy a little bit of time, and we see Sukuna step into the Simple Domain. It is already getting peeled away. To which Gojo responds to this shattering of his Simple Domain by immediately recasting it, which Sukuna says, "How tedious." And after this, we see Gojo stop using reverse curse technique, and Yuta thinks he might be out of curse energy. But it's actually because he's using RCT to focus on his curse technique's recovery instead. And Gojo is just getting beat on by Malevolent Shrine slashes, and the narrator says, "Is Gojo gonna lose? No, it's Gojo Satoru." Gojo proceeds to amp his speed to blitz Sukuna with a bear hug, and then pops a red reversal right in his face. And we see Sukuna take note of the amp speed the same way he did in chapter 2. Did Gojo teleport here? I don't think so. We didn't see him put his hands together, and we already know that he can move at high speeds with just Blue, unless his teleportation itself is what they were referencing. But either way, he launches Sukuna into his shrine, busting up the left side of his body as Gojo heals himself the rest of the way and says, "What a pain in the ass." And that is where the chapter ends, and that is what we are left with for 2 weeks, because there is another break. But let's dig into this chapter for a bit, because I have a lot to say, especially with full translations. So first of all, Gojo lived and tanked Malevolent Shrine. I see a lot of confusion about how he tanked Malevolent Shrine with Cleave, because Cleave, that's the real question here. Dismantle, yeah, everybody can buy Dismantle, but Cleave is supposed to one-tap you. So start the fact that Cleave and Dismantle, they are both slashing attacks, and we do not know the exact application of Cleave or what it looks like. And I'm gonna go on a limb here and say that if Gojo is tanking Cleaves that are adjusting to his curse energy, Dismantles are doing fucking nothing. nothing. Because all of these slashes, they look exactly the same, and I don't think anybody is going to sit there and tell me, actually, I can see exactly which are which. So this is the pure, unfiltered headcanon from Crookless Shinobi. I would not be surprised if cleaves were the only slashes we were seeing do serious damage to Gojo. Because let's say Cleave is adjusting to his curse energy and reinforcement, the way Gojo could survive this, if it is just a slash, he would have to heal upon the entry of the slash all the way along its exit path out of his body to not get his head cleaved straight through. And Gojo's reverse curse technique speed is currently the greatest in the entire series, so I can buy it that was what he was doing. Because a lot of people are saying, is Cleave false advertisement, which it definitely could be, or it could just be that the max output of Cleave is not high enough to cut through the reinforcement of Gojo. So those are my thoughts on Cleave. I'm sure other people have explanations for it, but those are my 2 cents. Now it is time for me to enter my supremely hot takes about this fight. Gojo is faster than a 20-finger Ryomen Sukuna while using his curse technique to amp his speed. I don't care where we're at the cope meter for this, Gojo blitzed Sukuna here and he was shocked. And after this chapter, Gojo's curse energy reinforcement is absolutely fucking bonkers. Nobody else is getting a moderately large neck gash from a Malevolent Shrine hit. And now that I have effectively pissed off the Sukuna fanboys, it is time to piss off the Gojo fanboys, because we are all inclusive in this channel. And I think we're being a little disingenuous to say that Sukuna used everything he could have to kill Gojo here. There were no 10 Shadows Shikigami, there was no Fire Arrow, let alone whatever else is hidden inside of Sukuna's curse technique. But to the detriment of my comment section, I will play devil's advocate for Ryomen Sukuna here. We know for 100% certain that Sukuna can open shadows in other people's domains, so there's no reason it should be harder inside his own domain. And we already know from this chapter and previous chapters that Sukuna, he doesn't have to do anything to slash you on repeat the entire time. The moment that Gojo's barrier broke, there should be nothing stopping him from just dropping a Mahoraga into the arena, on top of every single other 10 Shadows Shikigami. And for all of this, he shouldn't even need a sure hit. Gojo is already on burnout and there is no infinity up. On the note of Gojo getting hit by the sure hit, Gojo is not a fraud because he got hit by the sure hit of Ryomen Sukuna. The same way that Sukuna is not a fraud for using 10 Shadows, the only reason he is able to use 10 Shadows is because he is capable of turning himself into a cursed object. The only other guy capable of that in the entire series is Himi Neutron. And this probably won't end until the actual fight is over, but neither of these characters are frauds because they get caught in attacks. The reality is that this is not the last time Gojo or Sukuna are going to be damaged in the rest of this fight, and it is very unlikely that the end of this fight comes about from a sheer power difference, and far more likely is going to come about from somebody pulling something over on the other one. And regardless of who wins, at the end of this battle, Sukuna cannot be allowed to keep 10 Shadows because it is just too powerful with his power set. And if Sukuna did beat Gojo and Gojo didn't accomplish anything but weakening him, what is he, just like a glorified poison dart? Because this is just my opinion, but Sukuna getting the 10 Shadows forcibly removed out of him sounds way more hype than Gojo just lowering like a percentage number of his curse energy. Because Gege is just setting up that Sukuna is going to get jumped after Gojo fights him, which I don't really think is going to happen. I think there's got to be some kind of twist around this. And while JJK usually leaves some pretty obvious hints towards what's going to happen later in the story, it being directly told to you by Kenjaku is a little much. But that's just my opinion, and I want to hear yours. What do you think of Ryomen Sukuna getting a red reversal popped directly into his mouth? Let me know in the comments below, and if you like content like this, subscribe for more. And as always, thanks for watching.